Yeah, no, thank you, everybody. And thank you for Hospitable for inviting us to do this today. This is always fun to get to come and talk about all the things that we've learned in many, many years. I think the intro of our podcast says that we've got combined 35 years experience, but that was a while ago that we said that. So I don't know that we want to change the years, but we've been doing this for a long time. My name's Alex Husner, co-host of Alex and Annie, and I've been in vacation rentals since 2008. I was chief marketing officer for a company called Condo World in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina market, and we managed 500 properties. We're 95% book direct brand. We built an OTA around condoworld.com that booked reservations for other properties in the region and other places throughout the country. I also was CMO for CasaGo, which bought Vacasa last year. And then about a year ago, I decided to start my own business as a fractional CMO. And I work with vacation rental companies and some of the tech providers within the space. And we've been doing the podcast now for 5 years. And yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, so I'm Annie Holcombe, and I'm the other half of Alex and Annie, and so that's how we come to you today is as Alex and Annie. But just a little bit about my background. I started in property management in the late 90s, so I was 4 when I started because I'm not going to date myself. But I've been in property management. I worked in OTAs. I worked for Expedia and managed some of the larger vacation rental markets with Expedia. Worked on their global team under key accounts and managed what at the time was called non-traditional lodging, which is what this sector fell under at the time. So vacation rentals was, not traditional. It wasn't hotels, and that was what it fell under. And so learned a lot in that time, and then ultimately transitioned out to the channel management world. I did have a brief stint in between channel management at Marriott Homes and Villas. So a lot of OTA experience, a lot of channel management experience, but the base of me is hospitality and within vacation rentals. And so Alex and I started the podcast 5 years ago and really wanted to bring to the industry kind of the flavor and the stories behind the industry, what makes it tick, what made people do the things that they do, what was their aha moment that made them start their business. And so that's the kind of the theme of our podcast. But I actually went out on my own last year and started my own company, Annie & Co. So you have directly Alex and Annie & Co. and the Alex and Annie podcast. So we're trying to keep it all with our names and keep it fun. And so today we wanted to just talk to you a little bit about, and really just at a high level, talk about what distribution, the importance of distribution and what that means for you as a business. So I'll cover the first part of it. And what I'm going to talk about is obviously, within distribution, working at OTAs and working at channel management. I understand how OTAs work, but I also understand what actually converts and where it converts. And so it's really important, I think, that you understand all the factors when you're thinking about your distribution. So that's some of the things that we're going to cover today is the distribution challenges. So what we know and what you should know. And then what we're going to look at a little bit of the numbers. Then Alex is going to dive into what direct booking means. And so one of the things that I like to tell people, keep in mind, is that your distribution strategy should not just be only book direct and not only OTAs. They both work together and they both should complement each other. And so you can build your brand across all funnels of business, and you want to focus on having a mindful strategy that works with your goals for your business. Okay, so the problem. So one of the things that we know is that we're very hyper-connected, and the consumer can shop in multiple places to find the vacation rental that they're looking for, whether they're going urban or they're going to a traditional destination. There's over 10,000 distribution channels, and a lot of those are actually sharing inventory. So just to get on one or two, you're not necessarily getting on all of them, but you might be getting on, a few of them. But now you also have the fact that social media is involved in that, and the consumer preference is continuing to change. We saw a lot of changes, obviously, after COVID, where people were traveling for different intentions, traveling for longer times, traveling to newer markets. And so we saw kind of a proliferation of channels. And then, of course, the big thing, obviously, on everybody's mind lately is AI. And what is AI doing? So we wanted to talk a little bit about that and help you understand what building an effective strategy looks like. And so the most important thing is so you can be seen and get booked. So what I like to tell people is the biggest thing you need to know is know your market. And a lot of times people make the mistake of coming in and saying, okay, I want this rate at this time with these rules, this length of stay. And oftentimes that's great to have the basis of what you want, but you also need to understand that you need to be what the market wants you to be. So there's going to be times of year, especially in, say, an urban environment, there's going to be various times a year where you're going to have different opportunities. You have events that are happening, you have corporate conventions that are happening, different customers. So you really have to understand what the market wants you to be and make sure you can be flexible with that. So understand who's coming to the market, know when they're coming to the market, and know why they're coming to the market. So I'll touch a little bit about this towards the end of my section, but just remember that data is your friend. So if you're not using a data provider at this point, you need to be. There's multitude of options that are out there. You've got Beyond Pricing, you've got Price Labs, you've got AirDNA, you've got Key Data. There's a whole bunch of different systems that you can choose. And I know Hospitable has some choices for you, but just make sure that you're using that data. And if you get confused by it, ask questions. It's okay, because sometimes that data is not telling you what you think it's telling you, and you need to dig a little deeper. So that data will help you understand all of these points of who's coming, when, and why. And then know your guest. I think everybody has the ideal guest. You want the guest that's going to stay 7 nights, pay max rate, never cause you a single problem, never ask a question, never need anything, and just go in and out very quietly. But obviously that's not reality. So it's fine to define the ideal guest, but it's also best to understand what guests are going to suit your properties, but what guests are going to suit your properties at specific times of the year. So again, if you're looking at a Taylor Swift concert coming in, you might be having moms and their daughters come in for 3 or 4 nights, and they're going to go shopping and they're going to do the spa. But if you have a football game, you might have a bunch of guys coming in and they're going to go to the bars and they're going to go to the restaurants and they're going to go to the game. And so they're different types, and you're going to want to make sure that you're not just your pricing strategy, but your distribution strategy is reaching those guests, and those guests aren't necessarily shopping in all the same places. So understand all the different types of guests you want, understand the rates that you want, understand your policies that you're looking for, and then what you can do is you can look at those channels and what those channels can deliver to you in terms of those guests. So with that, the one thing that everybody should understand is all channels are not equal. Airbnb delivers a specific type of guest. They tend to be younger, more adventurous travelers. The VRBO guest tends to be someone who's looking for a big whole home rental. They're tending to be multi-generational, but they're families. If you're looking for business and international, booking.com is a great channel to use. I'll come back to that one in a second. Last day guest, last minute guests, people that are traveling on a whim, that's the channel Whim Stay. Those are people that are going to book inside 28 days, and maybe they're going to come back to the market 3 or 4 times just on the last minute, say, hey, the weather's great, I'm going to go to this destination because it's 3 hours away from me. And then if you're looking for a loyal guest that's maybe a hotel guest during the week, they tend to travel for business, but they're loyal, use channels like Marriott Homes and Villas and the Hyatt channel. So they have a very loyal consumer like travel, their business base, that's using the channel. And so you want to tap into that because those people are looking to utilize their points to pay for some of their vacations. And so those 2 channels have emerged as really strong crossovers for you to tap into the hotel segment of business. And then if you're in a market where you can do longer stays, so some of these markets where you're, again, urban, or maybe it's off season and you can do 30 plus day stays, look at a channel like Furnish Finder. And I know that some of the users of Hospitable have signed up with that channel and seen some success. So make sure you're taking a look at that and what you want for your inventory.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Okay. Question from the audience. On Homes and Villas or Whim Stay or even Furnish Finder, I think the answer is probably no. But on the other 2, is there a minimum number of properties that they have to get onto those channels?
So interesting question. Great question, actually. Marriott Homes and Villas does have a count. They do tend to fluctuate. It's usually around 50, and that's a total portfolio count. However, there are ways that you can get on if you have less than 50, as long as you meet their requirements. There's a provider called Travel Station, and they can help you connect to Homes and Villas. Furnish Finder, I'm not aware of them having any minimums. I think they actually work with hosts that have 1 or 2 units. So they would be one that wouldn't be a problem. But I do know that Homes and Villas does have some minimums in place, but theirs is really more based around the quality of your service. And you will have to go through some, I want to say, some hoops to jump. You have to go through some approval process with them. They're definitely looking for standards, which is something I know that is a big topic for vacation rentals and short-term rentals as a whole, is what are standards and what do those look like. Marriott can help you define those. I'm not sure about the Hyatt. I believe they have some similar criteria in place. So does that answer your question, Alex?
It does. Thank you.
And Lisa here said that Furnished Finder does not have a minimum. So this is that's good.
Cool.
That's good.
Awesome.
I did want to touch on the business and international. So a lot of you listening or on this webinar might be in an urban area that is going to be host to the World Cup and some of the World Cup events that are happening this summer. The World Cup is going to bring more people from Europe and South America and Asia than probably any event has ever done for the US. And so Booking.com is the channel that you have got to be on. There's just absolutely no way around it. You've got to be on that channel if you want international business. They're going to book further out. A lot of times they're going to book a package, which includes their airfare, their car, and they're going to book further out. Package bookers tend to book a higher rate because they're just wanting to get everything done at one time. So they're going to stay a lot longer. A lot of these guests that are coming in, they're saying they're going to be here for a month. So they're going to travel to multiple markets. They might travel to multiple markets, maybe say, if you're in Kansas City as one of the hubs, they're going to go to places like Branson, Missouri, or some drive markets to be able to see some of America while they're here. So make sure that you take a look at that. I am actually, just to full disclosure, working with Booking on some ambassadorship and helping them out in the US, and very specific. So if you have any questions specific to the channel that you don't have a rep, feel free to reach out to me and I can help you. I know that there has been some frustration working with that channel, but they have done a lot to mitigate the concerns of working with them and make it a little easier. They're working every day on it. They're working on being able to provide deeper support and more tools to make remove the friction of working with the channel. But definitely one that you want to look at for international, but also from a business perspective. If you're in an urban area, they are really strong in the business world. They're growing all over the US and probably the fastest growing channel in the US next to Airbnb. Okay, so I said I wanted to talk a little bit about the numbers. And so I talked to our friends at Beyond Pricing, and they gave us a little snapshot of what the channels look like in terms of their customer base. Now, looking at the numbers, their average unit count is 13 properties for the PMs that work with them. So again, smaller, they're not working with the larger enterprise operators. But what these numbers told me just initially was that absolutely, if you look, the yellow is direct. So direct is winning on ADR, direct is winning on length of stay, and direct is booking on lead time. So Alex will really touch on that for you. But other channels, again, they have their strong points. So again, these 3 KPIs, direct wins. But where the problem ensues is the balance. And what we see is that there's a big imbalance in that people are very dependent on one channel. And so not that I'm saying that that's incorrect, but if you have more than a couple of units, you should not be giving one channel all of your business. Your direct business should be more than 50%, and then your channels should be the remainder of that 15% divided along those channels. Not one channel should never be over 50% of your bookings. So this is concerning for their customer base, just taking a look at that. And so I would say, take a look at your channel mix. If you have only one channel, that's of concern. Again, if you have more than a couple of units, especially with Hospitable, you have some direct connects to Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking.com. Obviously, you can book to your direct site, and then I know that they're planning to add some channels. So make sure you take a look at that. And again, I'm happy to talk with anybody about how to decide what channels might be best for your inventory and your market. But definitely take a look at your mix and understand where your business is going, because balance is key. So mastering direct bookings, this is Alex, and she's going to take you through her years of expertise in helping build a direct book strategy.
Awesome. Cool. Quick question. Am I controlling the slideshow?
I can do it if you don't see the little arrows on the bottom.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, you should be able to. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if we had that or not. Yeah. So, the interesting thing about when Annie and I first met, actually, we worked together kind of through a partnership. The company I was with, we used the channel manager that she worked with. And, again, I was 95%. That company, we had a very, very big emphasis on direct bookings because we were trying to build a brand that was going to be a multi-market. So that's not necessarily the strategy that the majority of people are trying to do these days. But we always connected on the fact that we really got each other, that, direct bookings and the OTAs and the channel manager that's in the middle there, they really need to balance each other, because if somebody finds you on Airbnb or Vrbo, I mean, they're going to want to come and find your property. And everybody's telling them now, you can find it for less if you book direct. So number one easy thing is, you can do this pretty quickly. If you go and Google your property or properties, the name of it, are they able to find what they found on Google or on Vrbo or Airbnb? Are they able to find it in a listing that comes up on your site? Super important. That's just the lowest hanging fruit. But it really is. It's not about being 100% direct business. I wouldn't recommend to anybody to be 95% direct like we were at that point. I agree with Annie that I think 50%. Anything 50% is it's really, it's a risk, because you don't know what could happen there. So you definitely want to have the mix, and just knowing that, I mean, the OTAs are advertising their brand. They're in the Super Bowl and all the college bowls and on billboards and everywhere in the world. So you need to use them, but you want to be able to drive the direct bookings that make sense for you, depending on how aggressive you want to be with it and what makes sense for your business model. Direct bookings, the way that you want to look at it, in my perspective, is, especially if you're a smaller host, these are bookings that you're going to get the OTA bookings every year. But these are ones, if this person really loves, if you're in a market that's a repeat market and they had an amazing experience, you shouldn't have to pay, that commission when they come back to you. So if you're, do your part and have the right fundamentals in place so that they do remember that it's you, and they know you as a host and also your company and the property, and they know that there's an easier way to get there and also to save some money. So that's the first part of this here. The benefits, obviously, being able to control the narrative here. So when you can talk to your guests in the manner that you want to talk to them, I think we all understand this. It makes things so much easier that you don't have to hide links. I mean, there's so many things you can do for upsells, different things that you can offer them, that, especially with Airbnb, it makes it a lot harder now that they have their own activities and experiences that they're pushing. If you have a direct booking, you're able to talk to that person just like it's a friend, and be able to get them down the funnel however you wish. So there's a lot of benefit just in the communication side of it. The profit, I could go both ways on this, because you're not paying a commission, but to get a direct booking, there is certainly money you're spending to get that. So in our case, when we were spending literally hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on pay-per-click, that's, again, not something I would recommend to anybody unless you're a very similar company to what we were back in the day. But regardless, you're spending money on your email marketing software, on the guest app that you use, on your direct website, and it all adds up. I mean, it doesn't, at the end of the day, the margins are still small in this business. So it's not, you can't look at it that it is it's a free booking if you get a direct booking. I don't think that that's accurate, but you have to look at, where is the booking going to come from the next time and the next time and the next time, as long as you're in a repeat market. If you're in a market that nobody comes back to you more than once, I don't know that I would recommend some of these things. So it kind of varies. And the relationships, I mean, I think when you're able to show the people that stay with you who you are, and be able to provide that empathy and that amazing hospitality, that's really how you get them to come back. And that's what really affects your conversion rate when you don't necessarily have a huge budget. You don't have to have a huge budget to get at least your fair share of the pie for direct bookings. Let's see. So, all these different parts right here, I kind of went into this already, but the paid search, the email, the retargeting, it's, this is all an acquisition cost. It can certainly add up. So, it would be interesting for everybody to do this as an exercise, to look at, what you spent this year. And the OTAs are tricky, right? They send you your money after they've taken theirs out. So it doesn't look like you've paid anything. But on the other hand, when you have to pay software costs or Google or Meta for remarketing, these other things, you're getting a bill. So it seems like it's more expensive, but at the end of the day, it probably margins out there. But just, do an exercise, go through it and see what it would be for a couple properties and see what that difference would be. So for your direct booking website, I mean, what really converts, in my opinion, both today and back in the day, the most important thing is making sure that it is so easy for somebody to be able to put dates in on your website and search. You want them to be able to get into that booking funnel at any point that they land on your site. So if you are building content about things to do in the area, or the destination, or different events, things like that, if they land on that page, that's great. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can look at content, but if they're landing on a page that's not necessarily a e-commerce type of a page, you want them to know you have properties that they can actually book, because it's that's kind of how you build that full circle funnel. Is you've got that content that you're attracting a wider base because you're putting content out about a lot of things besides just the properties. But if somebody's searching for, the Harley Davidson Bike Week in Myrtle Beach, and they land on Condo World's website and they see, okay, this is great information about the event, but oh my God, they've got all these condos that are in homes, I can book right there. So you want to make sure that the content people are landing on, it speaks to the reason why you're putting that content out in the first place, and that it's really easy to get into that conversion funnel. It's crazy enough as it is, that to me, it doesn't sound like it's that, that's not like a novel concept, but most websites that I go to for vacation rentals, it is hard to figure out how you put dates in. I mean, on the homepage, maybe that's like the easiest one, but depending on mobile, things can really go sideways. So you really want to make sure that if you are building a website, or even the website you have right now, you are testing it on mobile. You go through and you do a booking. I would do this at minimum once a month, but to be honest, back in the day, we used to do this every single day. We used to do a test booking every single day on our website, because you never know what can happen with, I'm sure Hospitable, this never happens with them, but with us, we always had APIs that things would die. And it's just really important to make sure that you are checking, because, you could, if you're not watching it that closely, it could be a month, and then all of a sudden you look back and you realize you had next to no direct bookings, but it's because something was broken. So really important to be checking it. The property detail page is really, really important. Answering questions, not just look pretty. You want them to be mobile friendly and to display properly, but you want to be answering the things that people are asking. And it's today's day and age with AI, it's not hard to figure that out. So if you can download all the inquiries that you've gotten on Vrbo, or from your site, or from your guest app, wherever you have that information, put it in a chat GPT and say, what are the most common things people are asking me about? Well, I should probably answer those questions right on my website so they don't have to worry about coming to me first. Doesn't mean that they'll still ask you them, but at least if you can cut down, part of those people, you're going to increase your conversion rate. So in most cases, people want to know about the cancellation policy. They want to know, is it pet friendly? They want to know, is there handicap access? What's nearby? The more information that you can provide, things to do in the area, the better. And sometimes it's not just all about just text that you have on the page. Sometimes if you have it laid out where it's a tab that has a map tab, and then another tab that has things to do, just so that it's visually very easy for somebody to consume.
Alex, I think we were talking to somebody recently, and I can't remember who said this, but they made the great suggestion of having somebody in your family, like an elderly person in your family, like a grandmother or an aunt or somebody, like actually go on your website and try to book. So the problem is you're dealing with other people that are shopping. You're not dealing with people that are savvy, that tend to be. So they're going to find those holes and those pockets of opportunity to address a lot quicker than you are, because you're going to overlook it.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a grandma you can send your website to, do it for sure, or borrow somebody's grandma. 100%. I mean, that was always our thing. Like, we would always make sure that the least tech savvy person we knew could make it through and make a booking when I was in the Condo World days, and that worked. So that's an important part of it too. Well, there's a couple questions here. Just want to make sure I saw this. Let's see.
Carly asked a question about a high-level budget formula for direct booking marketing spend.
Yeah, that's honestly, that's a really hard one because, and I don't know that I'm the best person to answer that because we spent so much but it was based on high volume amount of properties and revenue that for a smaller host, I'm glad you asked it, and I think that's Annie. That's something we need to write down for us to figure out because I think it's something that people ask about a lot, but I can't tell you that unfortunately. So
Yeah, I think also too it goes to how many like where are you going to be, because
yeah,
trying to compete with an OTA in a market. Carly, I'm assuming this is Carly that I know. Indianapolis, you're competing with hotels for some keywords in a
yeah,
market, and the OTAs are driving that cost up. So you have to be very mindful about what your spend is. And so I think that's where the kind of the rub comes in. Is it's not as easy as it used to be. There's so many places that you could be, and there's so many things that you can actually do for free if you optimize your website and optimize it for AI. That's a whole different topic of conversation we could come back and talk about. But absolutely, I think Alex and I can try to find something for it. But I think there's so many variables in there. Unless you have an endless bucket of money, it's almost hard to decide what that should look like.
yeah. It is hard. And Wade asked a question about. He said, "I have direct website, but I'm terrible at social media. I get mostly my repeat guests from other OTAs. Then they book other suggestions." And the interesting thing is, I think if you have really spectacular properties that are very unique looking, I think you can do well on social media as social media actually driving bookings, but that's not the case for most people. So, I mean, where I'm at Myrtle Beach and where Annie is in Panama City Beach, the companies we've worked with have beautiful condos, but there's a lot of 3-bedroom condos that, just posting pictures of those on social media isn't necessarily what's going to move the needle. But from my perspective on the social media side, what's important here is if you are somebody that you're trying to either be a co-host for more properties or you're trying to grow your property management company to list more properties, it's really about branding. Unless if you have those spectacular properties, there's some people out there that can do some crazy things on social. But other than that, it's really more about, and this is more low cost, it's more about branding. It's positioning yourself as the expert within your destination, as like the expert of short-term rentals within your destination. Because if somebody is, they've found you, you've talked to them, they've Googled you, now they want to know, okay, is this a reputable company to list my property? If you're going up against a behemoth in a market that has 400 or 500 condos, or somebody that just has 10 to 20, what's going to make you different? And sometimes people don't mind that you have less amount of listings, but they want to know that you are investing, at least that they can see, in your brand identity and that you're keeping yourself out there. So I think there's some intangible things there that aren't too expensive to keep track of. There's one other question, Annie, that I'll throw this one to you about pricing. So somebody asked here about it. Once you do your prices, how do you verify and validate the prices? For example, if I made a change on price slabs, what's an actionable way to verify these were proper changes?
So, I see Eric's question. So actually, Eric, if you within Hospitable, you have a direct link to your site, to your listing, so you'd be able to actually click through to the site and then like shop it. But what I suggest is if you're going to make updates, go shop your properties for a couple of different dates on a couple of different channels. Like if you say you've covered, if you're on 3 channels, you want to shop three channels at 3 different dates, just to give yourself the confidence that it's going through. Generally speaking, I know that Hospitable has a really great connection, and their lag time for updates is almost non-existent. So you shouldn't have a problem there. But definitely, I would say you want to shop the live site just to confirm that those went through, because sometimes it'll uncover a connectivity problem. Sorry, Carly, call you out. We uncovered an actual problem that was between the PMS and the OTA that was like nobody knew it was a problem. It was just something that we uncovered in the process of uploading some new properties and some pricing and getting them live. And so it really had nothing to do with the pricing itself as much as it did with like policies and actual booking procedures. But if you don't test it, it's just like your own booking site. You want to test the OTAs because you think about it, they're global, they're dealing with hundreds of thousands of properties, and every once in a while something does go awry, and you want to uncover it and get it fixed as quickly as possible. And so you might be actually uncovering a problem for for price labs in this case. But definitely when you make the update, shop the live sites, and then after a while, you're going to get very confident that it's going through, and you'll be comfortable with that. It's not very often. Most of these companies are testing their APIs pretty frequently to make sure that those changes go through seamlessly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Hopefully
I think
that answered your question.
it's also about knowing what your core objectives are as the company. I mean, for yourself or for your homeowners, like what are you trying to achieve here, and making sure that your comp set that you're looking at is indicative of what you are trying to achieve. I mean,
I misunderstood his question. I'm sorry.
Well, no,
I
I think
totally misunderstood.
really relevant too, but I'm not. I don't know if that was the direction it was going, but that made me think of that as well.
I'm reading it again. I think I misunderstood it, but we can talk about it offline, Eric. I'm happy to.
Cool. So somebody else also mentioned about SEO, and I'm not sure if we go into that too deep in this presentation, but that's huge too. And for a small direct, for a small portfolio company, it's going to be very hard for you to compete in traditional SEO as far as outranking websites that probably have hundreds of listings, and Google sees them as that behemoth. So how are you actually going to drive that traffic there? AI search has changed things drastically, and I don't think that anybody has like a true answer as to what is really making the difference there. And it's literally changing every day. I just saw yesterday in Gemini, a lot of the searches that were coming back related to vacation rentals, they were all just pulling the Google business profile. So one quick win, I would say for sure, if you don't have a Google business profile for your business, set that up and send people, if they rate you on Vrbo or Airbnb, if that's where the booking's coming from, if they get you, 4+ stars, send them a link to rate you on Google. And the way to get the direct booking from that is you can say, because they're going to get solicited by the platforms for those reviews, but for your own review from them, if you say, well, I'll give you 5% off for next year or for the next time you book, and you can do the discount based on next year's rates. There's ways you can do that, but to get those reviews is really, really important. So I would be thinking about that. Email marketing has always been very effective. In my lifetime, I would say it has gone down over the years, to be honest. I think we're all over emailed at this point. I don't think that SMS has replaced it. And quite honestly, I get really frustrated and annoyed when I get SMS offers from any kind of company, even ones that I want to hear from. Texting is, to me, a personal thing. That's where my friends and family converse. I'm used to it. But it is still definitely effective. I've used a variety of different platforms for it. I think needs to be looked at into the broader scheme of the goal of building a brand. And again, that goes back to the efforts and the ability that you have to be talking about the destination, not just property after property after property, but what's going on in Myrtle Beach in January? What are the sports events that are coming up? What are, the marathon, the Memorial Day, the holidays? What are reasons that would make somebody want to come visit? Because ultimately, if somebody stayed with you in Gatlinburg last August and they had a great time, they might not be necessarily planning to come back in the next year. But if you're sending them things that are showing interesting things, not just your properties, of why they would want to come back, they're going to think about it when they're planning their next trip. So it's you've got to really have that content funnel that really supports all the efforts here. And depending on how sophisticated you want to get, there's a lot of things that you can do here as far as past guests and abandoned searches on your website. A lot of different things there. This is probably more complex, but I'd be happy to go down the rabbit hole with anybody that wants to on that. Let's see, timeline. So this is really important and probably one of the more easier ones, I think, that you can do. When somebody books a reservation with you, whether it's direct or whether it's Vrbo, Airbnb, whatever channel it is, the best thing you could do is before they book that, go do a audit of your guest journey. So map out for each channel what they get sent. And I would put it in a spreadsheet so that you can follow that flow. And if you did this maybe a few years ago, but you haven't done it recently, I would do it every year, because there's always those that one thing that there's a year that you had to say that the traffic is going to be bad during May or something like that, or God forbid, I see a lot of things that still have COVID parameters in there. So just checking to make sure what is being included there, to make sure that sounds relevant and you know what you're talking about. Otherwise, if somebody gets that email from you, it just sounds like, why am I trusting this person? They don't even know, why would I need ski boots in Hilton Head? I've seen that. So just being clear to audit and know what is actually getting out to your guests, and using that to really just reinforce your brand recognition. So who you are, including a picture of you and your team, or something that makes it feel local to them, I think it is a great way to use that, because people want to see, they need instructions. They need to be able to get into their property. The one thing you do not want to do, and I just talked to somebody yesterday that is not in vacation rentals, but he said, "Oh my God, every time I book a vacation rental, I get 7 emails from anywhere that I book." And we've been there. I mean, like, it not necessarily through Airbnb, but when people book direct, there are a lot of companies that, like, they don't have this mapped out, and they get a separate email for their confirmation, their pre-arrival, their deposit request, their the rental confirmation, the thing they've got to sign, the agreement, all those things. There's so many different things that are sent out, and it just looks like you don't have your stuff together. So we'll definitely go through and audit that. And yeah, so let's see. We have a few minutes. We can go through the questions, but let's see. Or if not, we can exit stage left, whichever you prefer.
No, you've got time. You've got time. Don't worry. We've got plenty of questions in the chat. So yeah, if you'd like to pick out a few of those, we can do that.
I think we've been trying to answer some of these questions as we go. I think just some follow-ups. People want to get a little bit more information about what that book direct looks like, and I think we can send some information to Miles to share with everybody. But I think one of the things that we didn't really dive into that is super important is your branding. Your branding should be everywhere you can possibly put it. And there has been a notion that you can't put it on OTAs. Well, some OTAs won't let you, and some will. Again, I've just talked to Booking. They've done a really good job in adding a profile page where you can put your logo, you can put about your company, a little bit about the property, a little bit about your neighborhood that the property is in, and that's what creates your trust with the guests, because you understand the market, you understand what's going on there. And so wherever you have the opportunity to put your name in the listing, put your logo on something, do that everywhere. To the gentleman that asked about like social, it's okay if you don't have a great social strategy or you're good at it. Just put stuff out there and make sure that you're getting your name and your logo, and share information from your local market to your social pages. So because people will start to go there for a source of information. So there's a lot of different things that you can be doing, but whatever you do, don't hide your name, don't hide your logo. Make sure that you have it everywhere. Make sure you're branding inside your properties for like, that has to be like the bare minimum of entry. If you're not branding inside your properties, I mean, that's a losing proposition to get repeat guests. But just brand yourself and make sure that you're building a brand so that you can get repeat guests. And I looked at some of the numbers people were sharing. You can flip some of these, 40 and 50, 60% on, the channels, and 10% direct, and switch it around. So you have, 40, 50% direct and 10 to 20% on the channels. Again, you want the channels, but they should be supplemental to your direct strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, it's like, it's mostly at this point about, you want to be collecting as much data as you possibly can from your guests. And I know that sounds like, of course, everybody wants to do that, but it's not necessarily the easiest thing when a lot of the business is coming through the OTAs and they restrict a lot of it. But there are ways within the property that you can do it. Somebody mentioned StayFi, for sure. That's a great option for it as well. But there's, depending on what your bandwidth is and where your properties are, having something in the unit, where they're, filling something out, or if you're going to meet guests, a lot of the companies that we talk to, especially down in Florida near Annie in the 30A market, they go on Saturdays and they bring them a cake and lemonade. And if you're going in to see the guests, and you're bringing them a gift, certainly you should be able to ask for them for their email address while you're there. Airbnb won't necessarily know that part. So just try to be collecting as much data as possible as you can. And, you might not have the whole thing figured out right now of how that all flows together, but get as much as you can, and it's like a puzzle. It'll start making more sense once you have the right building blocks to get to where you're trying to go.
Yeah, I see a question here from Paul. What is a good occupancy level? Obviously the best occupancy level is 100%. That's what everybody's aiming for. But know what your market is, because a lot of people will say, I'm running 100% occupancy, but if you have one unit and you're only renting it, it's a lot easier. It just depends on, again, your properties, where they're located, how you're marketing. There's so many factors that go into it, but I think that you overall you want to get to about a 55% occupancy, and that way, if you get to that occupancy level, then you can start taking your prices up. You have enough demand to kind of fill in at least like the bare minimum of what you need to make. But it's really important to understand for each property that you have, what's your break even? Like, what do you need to be generating to make make the operation work, but also satisfy your owner if you have an owner, if you're not a property owner, if it's an owner that you're working for. So keeping all of those things into consideration, because if you're in the luxurious position where you own the property and you can dictate pricing to drive occupancy, it's a lot easier than if you have to keep pricing at a level to make an owner happy. And so therefore you might not be able to pull all the levers you want to drive occupancy. So there's a lot of factors that go in that. But certainly Paul's certainly happy to talk with you all, one off if you'd like to.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if there was anything else.
Yeah, and if we see this come up often as far as like the insurance side of things and like damage waivers, things like that. If you guys have questions on how to do that, certainly have some recommendations for vendors that we work with in the space that will help you be able to accomplish that as a small host.
Yeah. Well, I think we covered it, Miles.
Yeah.
Great. I think so. Awesome. Yeah. So thank you very much, both of you. And
right.
shared in the chat as well